Greetings to you. I'm going to read this message from the underworld from the words of Peter Kingsley in his book In the Dark Places of Wisdom. This is a book under this section of mythology. Let's see if I can read it by candlelight here. The underworld isn't just a place of darkness and death. It only seems like that from a distance. In reality, it's the supreme place of paradox, where all the opposites meet, right at the roots of the West as well as East mythologies. There's the idea that the sun comes out of the underworld and goes back to the underworld every night. It belongs in the underworld. That's where it has its home and where its children come from. The source of light is at home in darkness. This was well understood in southern Italy. The whole Italian mythology grew up around the figures of the sun god as he's driven in his chariot by the horses that carry him out of the underworld before they take him down again. That was true in Parmenides' hometown called Villa Velia, and for certain men and women known as Pythagoreans, people who had gathered around Pythagoras when he came out to southern Italy from the east. These same ideas were a basic tradition. Pythagoras tended to live close to volcanic regions. For them, that was something very meaningful. They saw volcanic fire as the light in the depths of darkness. It was the fire of hell, but also fire that all the light we know and see derives from. From them, from them, the light of the sun and the moon and stars were just reflections, offshoots of the invisible fire inside the underworld. And they understood that there's no going up without going down, no heaven without going through hell. To them, the fire in the underworld was purifying, transforming, and immortalizing. Everything was part of a process, and there were no shortcuts. Everything had to be experienced, included, and to find clarity meant facing utter darkness. This is much more than just a matter of mythology. In theory, we think we know that each dawn brings a new day, but in practice, we never see what that means. Deep down, we've all agreed to look for the light in the light and avoid everything else, reject darkness and its depths. Those people realize that there's something very important hidden in the depths. For them, it wasn't only a question of confronting a little bit of the darkness inside themselves. It was a question of going right through the darkness to what lies at the other end. Now pause for us to take that in and sip some tea. For some reason, reading this, writing from In the Dark Places of Wisdom by Peter Kingsley reminds me of the films of Pasolini, an Italian director who did he did Oedipus, King Oedipus, the old ancient book about the king who blinded himself. And also reminds me of the story of the mage Julius Evola. I don't know the veracity of this tale, but he talked about how during the bombing in London, I think during the 19, or maybe it was where he was at in Italy. I don't know exactly where, but during the bombings in World War II, he talked about making direct intent and action to walk out into the streets when planes were rumored or heard to be bombing overhead, and chose to walk about during that time while bombs were coming down, better to contemplate his fate. What better way to contemplate one's fate than in the face of death? And I'll leave you guys with that Plutonic story of the underworld as an adjunct to the Aries vortex, which will be ruled and dominated by Pluto, as is this year and the next 6 or 7 odd years as Pluto's out of bounds in Aquarius, with Saturn and Uranus as for rulership in Aquarius, where Pluto is.